Sup, Dad?
Welcome to This Dad Reads, a pop culture podcast on books, shows, games, and all things nerdy. What is going on, my friends? I hope everyone is doing well out there. I am your host, Jason, and I am joined right off the bat by my droid pal, KC78. How you doing, KC? Good to hear, my man. Hey, I'm so stoked to just have you with me right off the bat. I figured, why not? Let's just start broing out this whole episode, and I can't think of a better companion to have at my side. For sure. Well, Casey, I don't know about you, but fall is almost upon us. Though where we live, the heat is still hanging on a little bit. So in all honesty, we've still got a little bit of heat left, but I can smell the pumpkin spice, and I am ready to get under the blankets again, ready to get cozy, ready to have the nights get a little bit darker, a little bit earlier. So I'm definitely excited for that. I'm also excited for all of the things that we have to talk about today. A lot has gone on since my last episode. A lot of books have been read and listened to. A lot of games have been played. Shows have premiered. Shows have been sadly announced to no longer be airing new episodes. So we have a lot to catch up on. So I'm pretty excited about today. How are you feeling about it? Excellent. Well, I think we should just start off with some of the most bummer news since my last episode. Obviously, The Acolyte is not returning for a second season. I refuse to call it a cancellation. In my mind, I'm calling it was just not renewed. So I'm trying not to use that terminology because it just bums me out too much. Obviously, if you are one of my listeners and following me on socials, you know how much The Acolyte meant to me. I really, truly think it was something special in the world of Star Wars. It still is something special in the world of Star Wars. It will live on forever as something that I think is just so unique in the world of Star Wars. And I am glad that it will be living on. We recently, earlier in this month, got the one-shot Kelnaka comic by Cavan Scott, which I thought was amazing. The art was really good. It was a really small, kind of contained, tight story, but it had a real emotional punch. We are getting the Wayseeker novel by Justina Ireland coming out later. We're getting the Art of book coming out later. There's still some stuff coming, and I'm still holding out hope that somehow, some way, the people and the creatives at Lucasfilm will find a way to continue the story that was set up in The Acolyte proper. I just really have a hard time thinking that that's going to be the last we see of Chimere, of the Stranger, of Osha, and all of those characters' journeys. But, you know, I was really bummed out the week that announcement was made, like a lot of people were. I'm just going to be straight up honest, I was having some dark times. I know it seems kind of silly to, take something that to heart that doesn't really mean anything, but it means something to so many people, and Star Wars is so important to so many folks out there, and especially for something like The Acolyte, where I feel like I went on a whole journey with that show. I've been anticipating it for so long, being able to go to the premiere and just really connect with other creatives and creators out there who were also as excited about the show, and talking with people on my podcast about the show and how much we loved it. And it was just a huge bummer that it happened that way. And I have been really trying to stay positive in all of my content, and I don't want to acknowledge the dark side, if you will, of the fandom, but so much of that was so prevalent in what was part of The Acolyte upon its, premiere and upon its initial release. And I want to also just leave that stuff in the past and just dwell on the good and the positive and the light that came out of the series. I am seeing people still discovering and watching the show online, and people still enjoying it. So it is still out. It is still there to be enjoyed and to rewatch, which I definitely want to do eventually. It is something that can't wait to share with my kids someday, and just keep the love going for the show. I am finally excited to say that I have committed to doing the work and getting some friends to join me in contributing their last current nexts. I know that I've kind of morphed the way that my last current next segment works to include other things, other media, other things I've been doing and watching and playing. And I am so glad that I had some friends joining me today. So Casey, why don't you get those audio files queued up, and let's hear from some of my friends on what their last current nexts are.
Hi Jason, Jay here from Jay's Reading Corner over on Instagram. Thanks for inviting me to share my last current next.
My last read was You Like It Darker by Stephen King. My current read is Empire of the Damned by Jay Kristoff. And my next read is Safe Enough, a collection of short stories by Lee Child. I look forward to hearing everyone else's recent reads, and thanks again for having me on.
Hello, I'm Savi. I'm at Enderisms on Twitter and Instagram. I am also a co-host of Star Wars podcast Stardust Records. My last read was Greater Good by Timothy Zahn. My Star Wars current read is Lesser Evil by Timothy Zahn, and my non-Star Wars current read is Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice. And my next read is actually Mace Windu, The Glass Abyss, and Tears of the Nameless by George Mann. I'm really excited for that one. And if I finish Interview with the Vampire soon, then hopefully The Vampire Lestat.
Hello there. This is Luke Charles, also known as Lukey Skytalker on Instagram. And I'd like to thank This Dad Reads for giving me the opportunity to join his podcast. I've been a massive fan of This Dad Reads. I've listened to a lot of his content over the time, and him being also on the Star Wars book club, and kind of was one of those people that got me passionate about wanting to be in the High Republic because I was enjoying it. And then to hear someone so infused about the whole initiative, like, it made it very exciting to understand it a bit more and learn a bit more of the depth of the whole series as a whole. With that being said, the assignment that I've kind of been given is to talk about the book that I last read, the book that I'm currently reading, and also the one that I'm planning on reading in the future. So the last book that I read was Temptation of the Force by Tessa Gratton, part of the High Republic Initiative, which is part of the Phase 3. And for me, this book was highly anticipated. I've been kind of waiting for Avar and Elzar's relationship to kind of really blossom and finally develop a little bit more. And you felt the tension a little bit throughout, I think, even Fallen Star and The Rising Storm very much, and even earlier in Night of the Jedi, but kind of seeing this relationship really develop and change massively from being a much more kind of tense relationship, but also much more caring and eventually physical. But it's just been a great journey to kind of see throughout these 3 years of seeing it all kind of culminate together and to then finally kind of give in to them emotions that perhaps they shouldn't be having, I think, or the Jedi do say that you're not allowed to have attachments. They seem to be a bit more lenient, I think, during this kind of era of Star Wars, the High Republic era, but it seems to still be frowned upon to have attachments. But it's nice to see a different perspective of them realizing that maybe actually having an attachment isn't necessarily a bad thing, and that it can actually make you stronger because you've got someone to protect or someone to support you. I think it's a good kind of almost like analogy for relationships that are in real life, in the sense that, when you are with someone and you care for someone a lot, they do have that ability to also lift you up and help you through these really impossible or desperate situations. In terms of the novel that I'm reading at the moment, I'm reading Beware the Nameless, another High Republic novel. Yeah, I've been reading a lot of Star Wars over the last 3 years. It's not quite clicking with me. I'm about a quarter of the way through so far, and I'm just finding the characters I'm not really getting that attached to. Like, I kind of felt that a bit from Escape from Valo, where it's the same characters from that book and it's almost a continuation of Escape from Valo. And I'm just not quite connecting with these ones. I don't know why. It just doesn't seem to be really sitting that well with me. I wouldn't say it's badly written or anything like that. I just think that these characters I just can't seem to relate that much to. And I'm just not gripped as to what's really going on within it. I'm hoping as I go a bit further that, or maybe when the Nameless, not hoping will appear, because it's awful. The Nameless are generally awful creatures. But once they do appear, that will kind of, the action will heighten and maybe perhaps have a bit more connection to the characters when I see or feel them and feel how they feel during these kind of situations. So yeah, I'm reading Beware the Nameless at the moment. It's not my favourite novel, but I'm a sucker for the High Republic stuff at the moment. The book that I am going to read next, and surprise, surprise, can you believe it? It's another Star Wars one. And this next one's something slightly a bit different. It's called The Rise and Fall of the Galactic Empire, which is kind of like an encyclopedia, but like a history kind of book about the Empire, which I'm quite interested to see how it's written and what perspectives we're kind of going to get. I did have a quick flick through and I saw some of the images, and I've kind of seen it. It's as if like it's meant to be like security footage from certain points. It's kind of, oh, this is the Empire during such and such. This was taken at, and I like the idea that we're getting this fly on the wall kind of perspective of reading and seeing it from a different, and I think what we're going to see from this encyclopedia / kind of history book is it from the Empire's perspective. So I imagine there's going to be a bit of like propaganda and things like that, and making you believe from a certain point of view that the Empire weren't as bad as perhaps what they seemed. So no, I'm generally really excited to kind of get my grips into that. I think that'd be more of a casual book to me to read rather than being my main book. I feel like I am going to read another book on the side of it when the new High Republic novel comes out in October in the UK. So yeah, that'll be my one that I'm kind of going in and out of. But yeah, my main one is going to be the novel that comes out in October. Thank you very much, This Dad Reads, for giving me this opportunity to talk about my Star Wars novels a little bit, and just basically allowing me to kind of talk about it. So thank you very much. Take care. Thank you.
I want to thank my friends Jay, Savi, and Luke for contributing their last current next this month. I have a couple people queued up who had expressed interest, so I want to keep this going. I love being able to share this show and this platform with other people in the community, and I love just hearing what people are reading and what they're engaging with. And if that can inspire someone else to pick up another different type of book they maybe wouldn't have picked up before, that's not a bad thing in my opinion. So thanks guys again for joining me. I have linked all of their socials and their output in the show notes of this episode, so definitely check those out. So Casey, I think let's dive into what we've been listening and watching and doing lately. Does that sound good? All right, perfect. So I don't think there's a better place to start with than what I have been reading. So since my last episode, I have read and listened to a whole bunch of books. So I'm just going to go through these and give my quick thoughts and give my breakdown on everything that I've read since the last episode. So first off, we had Bringing Ben Home, A Murder, a Conviction, and the Fight to Redeem American Justice. This is a nonfiction true crime type book by Barbara Bradley Haggerty. And it's her telling the story of a guy who had a wrongful conviction and basically spent a ton of years in prison for it. It was heartbreaking. It was interesting. It was super emotional. And I have my friends at Penguin Random House Audio to thank for that audiobook. So thank you guys so much. Another book I read was Beware the Nameless by Zoraida Cordova from Disney Publishing Worldwide. That is obviously the next middle grade book that came out recently at the end of August as part of the High Republic Phase 3. My full review for that is up on thisdadreads.com. So thanks to my friends at Disney Publishing Worldwide for their advanced copy of that book. I also read The Edge of Balance Volume 3 by Daniel Jose Older and Shima Shinya, which is from Viz Media, another part of the High Republic Publishing Initiative. This is the manga that just came out, and I love me a good, switch up in media type. And so the mangas, there's only been 4 of them out now, but every time they come out, it just reminds me how much I love this style of storytelling. It's so visual and unique, and just the way that it can tell the Star Wars story in a different way is so cool. I think we've been super just like blessed by the variety of Star Wars media that has come from the High Republic. So I loved that. You definitely cannot read it just by itself though. You need, like all of the Phase 3 High Republic books, you can't just pick these books up, but it's a really cool book and I definitely recommend it. My review of that is also up on my website. I then read The Extraordinary Disappointments of Leopold Berry, which is the first volume in Ransom Riggs's new YA fantasy world called Sunderworld. Thanks to my friends at Dutton Books For young readers, for the advanced copy of this book, they sent me also a really cool PR box, which had like a cool pin and some postcards from Sunderworld and a token, which is a really neat kind of collectible and straight from the pages of the book. I had read one of Ransom's books before, one of the Peculiar Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. Sorry if I'm getting that mixed up. I'm not looking at any notes for this part, so I might be saying that wrong. I enjoyed it okay. I didn't read the entire series, but I know Ransom Riggs is very popular in the YA kind of fantasy world. And this book was very entertaining to me. It was a very fast read. It's a YA book, and it kind of tells the story of this kid, Larry or Leopold, who his mom is no longer in his life, and she had loved this 80s show that he watches over and over on a VHS, and it kind of magically comes to life and realizes that this world is actually real, and he's going on this journey of discovery to figure out where his place in all of that is. And it's kind of like a hero origin story, but we don't really know if he's a hero yet, and definitely leaves a lot more to be discovered. It's volume 1 definitely for a reason. So there's been lots of chatter about this book online, and I think it's a really fun read, so I would definitely recommend it if you're looking for something different, something, a little bit lighter and fair, light fantasy, funny, and definitely has fantastical elements to it. Next up, I listened to The Plan, Manage Your Time Like a Lazy Genius by Kendra Adachi. I've talked about Kendra and her books before on my show. I'm a big fan of, and my wife is, of her podcast and some of her other books. And this might have just been like a kind of weird timing thing for me. Like, The Plan was okay, it was fine. It's definitely geared towards women, and I don't think men can't listen to this book, but there's definitely chapters and portions that are directly written for women and female audiences. The point of this book is to not be like any other planning books out there, and Kendra's goal is to really show that there can be a different way to do this. And so many books about making plans and setting goals for yourself and achieving them come from this kind of very specific perspective, and it's her goal to show that it doesn't have to necessarily be that way. And she basically applies her lazy genius principles, which I am a huge fan of, into planning your life, setting goals for yourself. And like I said before, I think this just might be a case of the wrong book at the wrong time. I love Kendra as a narrator. She's super funny and it feels so conversational. But by the end of this book, I just felt like tired, and I didn't feel motivated to want to put any of these things into practice. Like, there's so many lists and so many numbers of things, and I think I just read it at the wrong time because it was, the school year just started. Things felt overwhelming in my personal life, and so I definitely think it's a really cool book with some good strategies, but definitely maybe also read it at a slower pace. I listened to it really fast. That's probably also my bad, but I recommend it, but hesitantly recommend it for females who might need a book to help them plan their life. And if you're not familiar with any of Kendra's kind of mantras or tactics and strategies, it's definitely something that you should check out. The next book I read was called The Dent in the Universe, Book 1 of the Epic Walrus Tech Universe by E.W. Doc Paris. This is published by Magic Genius Books, and guys, this book really surprised me. Sometimes you randomly pick up a book and you don't know what you're getting into, and you just go on a journey that you didn't know you were ready for and you didn't know that you needed. So this is a thriller / horror kind of / sci-fi / kind of post-apocalyptic story. It's super unique, where basically there's this tech billionaire who he needs another hit for his stockholders to be happy, and he kind of stumbles upon this software. It starts off kind of as this cool contraption to be like, oh, I'm gonna go 30 minutes in the past and order a pizza, and then once I hit order, your doorbell rings and the pizza shows up, which is a really cool thing. But then they kind of start beta testing it, and things quickly start to go wrong, and crazy villain guy who's kind of like in disguise this whole time is using this tech to basically start the zombie apocalypse of the whole world, and he succeeds. And so it is book 1 of this series, and I'm really intrigued to see what happens next. I literally could not put this book down. It's one of those books where you just want to find out what happens next and you don't want to stop. And the multiple POVs really work because it takes you on this kind of like roller coastery journey through time and different characters' perspectives. And There's some really cool connection things that the author does, and it was really cool. So I can't recommend it enough. It's called The Dent in the Universe. I highly recommend it. The next book that I listened to is called I Know Who You Are, How an Amateur DNA Sleuth Unmasked the Golden State Killer and Changed Crime Fighting Forever by Barbara Ray Venter. And this is for my true crime fans out there. Guys, I've been on like a true crime kick in terms of audiobooks lately. If you love true crime podcasts, I have definitely found some true crime novels or nonfiction books that would be perfect, and this is one of them. So this book is written by this lady, Barbara Ray Venter, who basically kind of figured out genetic genealogy and figured out that you can use Ancestry and databases, public databases she started off by helping adoptees find their birth parents, and she basically applied this strategy to helping law enforcement help solve cold cases, and she was the one who basically knew who the Golden State Killer was first, one of the first people to ever know who that was. It's a really cool story, and Barbara is herself the narrator. And guys, also, I kind of got like ASMR vibes from her narration, which is kind of just like a cool bonus. But again, heartbreaking stories, really cool perspectives, and she just takes you on a journey from like where she's been, and some of the adoption stories are really heartwarming and cool, and just it's really cool from like a technological perspective, and makes me really anxious to see where this technology will go in the future, and hopefully we haven't kind of like legislated ourselves out of using this as a tool to solve crimes. But again, really cool, and I highly recommend it. Thanks again to my friends at Penguin Random House Audio for that one. And then lastly, I listened to The Devil at His Elbow, Alex Murdoch, and The Fall of a Southern Dynasty by Valerie Bauerlein. I don't know how to pronounce that last name. I'm sorry, Valerie. This is another true crime book that I couldn't... I'm sorry, guys. I couldn't help myself. This is the story of this crazy family who kind of were the solicitors in the South for a long time and were just corrupt and evil and terrible. And finally, recently, as of like a few years back, one of the members of the family gets convicted of some terrible crimes, and he was addicted to drugs, and he had a son who was just crashing boats and just crazy stuff. Like, it's just one of those stories that it's like, wow, this is really the state of our world, and you're glad that justice is finally being done, but how did people get away with stuff for so long? And it's one of those like entertaining books because it's sad. And again, I want to thank my friends at Penguin Random House Audio for that one as well. Woo, KC, that was a lot. I think we should take a little break and come back and catch back up on stuff we've been watching and playing. How do you feel about that? Okay, great. Yeah, you go get yourself oiled up. I'll go get a drink, and we'll be right back. This back-to-school season, show off your love of your favorite fandoms with apparel and gear from Heroes and Villains. From Dungeons & Dragons to Marvel, Disney, and Star Wars, there are styles for every member of the family. And they just released some Grand Admiral Thrawn designs that I have definitely got my eye on, and maybe a few of them are already in my cart. What I especially love about Heroes and Villains is that if you're like me and need to refresh your office wardrobe, they have very clever ways to incorporate your fandom into your professional wardrobe. So if you want to do the same, use code ThisDadReads at checkout to save 20% off your first order when you visit heroesvillains.com. That's ThisDadReads at heroesvillains.com for 20% off your first order. And we are back. KC, you look nice and refreshed. I feel nice and refreshed. You ready to jump back into what we've been doing lately? Well, we are conveniently sitting at my man cave table, which is the place where a lot of games in my house are played. So I want to talk about some tabletop games that me and my family, me and my friends have been playing lately. How does that sound? Excellent. Well, I'm going to start off with a couple family games that we've really been enjoying. One is called Snap the Difference. It's by Asmodee. This is a funny and really easy to play card game that my daughter already loves and is really good at. She's won almost every time we played it. It's a card game, but it's kind of based off the classic card game Snap, but with a cool twist. So when two seemingly matching cards are revealed, all players have to race to spot the small difference between them and shout it out before anyone else. So this game features a whole bunch of animals doing funny things, wearing silly hats. This game has something for both kids and adults to enjoy, and it's one of those fast-paced, just quick games that my kids don't have the longest attention span. And it's a perfect game for that. It's also, though, at the end of a long day for me and my wife to play, we're like, we don't see the difference. It's hard. So that's obviously another entertaining aspect to the game. So we've been enjoying that. Thank you to Asmodee for sending me that game for my family to check out. Another kid-friendly game is Star Realms Academy by Wise Wizard Games. This is a really cool kids version of the famous Star Realms deck building game, and which I have honestly only ever played on the mobile version, but this version is still fun for grown-ups as well. It's basically a great way to teach younger kids what deck building games are. If you don't know what deck building games are, they're basically games where you start out with a really small hand of a small deck that you usually have some sort of purchasing element. You buy better cards that you can build into your hand, and as you kind of shuffle your deck throughout the game, your deck gets better and better as you go, so you can obviously not have basic cards to play with, but strong cards to play with. And in Star Realms, it's based in space, and you're trying to take down another person's kind of star base. And it's the art on this is fun for younger kids. It has some cool alien type of art. It's less kind of realistic and gritty as the original Star Realms, but it's more geared towards kids, and it has some nice kind of board elements that help kids learn and how to keep track of like money and how to keep track of shields and how to keep track of damage. So my son was super excited to beat me at this game, and so we had a good time playing it. This is a deck building game for 2 players. There's less math and no reading necessary, and still tons of fun. Also from Wise Wizard Games is Sherlock Solitaire. In this game, you take on some of Sherlock Holmes's most famous mysteries. It's a quick strategy card game for either 1 player to play in solo mode, or 2 players, you can play it as a co-op. With a little bit of luck, you might even be able to thwart the dastardly Professor Moriarty and his agents once and for all. This game has some interesting mechanics, which kind of at some parts you hurt yourself, and if you hurt yourself like 4 times, you end the game. You choose between a number of different stories that are basically the way that you need to win the game. So there's different ways every time you play to win the game. So that changes up your strategy every time. So between different areas of your board and getting injured and, different rules in terms of which cards can be placed where, it's actually kind of tricky to win. I haven't actually won yet at all. And so it's a really cool, just kind of casual solitaire style game based in the world of Sherlock. So once again, I want to thank my friends at Wise Wizard Games for sending both of these to me, and I can't wait to continue playing them. Another game that you've heard me talk about on the show before is Star Wars, the deck building game, again by Asmodee. The original game of this, which came out a couple years ago now, is the game that I keep trying to get George Mann to commit to play with me, because it has been my most replayed tabletop game in recent memory. My cousin and I play it very often, and just recently a new version of it came out. A Clone Wars edition just came out, which my friends at Asmodee have been generous enough to send to me as well, and I just played my first game the other day, and it was super fun. Basically, you're playing either as the Separatists or the Republic, and you are again trying to take down a number of each other's bases or planets, and it's really it's the same mechanics as the Star Realms game, essentially, but just with a Star Wars version on top of it. And this game, again, the it's so replayable, and the mechanics are so fun. You get to like buy cards and add them to your hand. And the Clone Wars version just throws a different twist on it. The Separatist deck is really geared towards trying to get as many droids as you can. Even if you have a droid in your discard pile, there's ways to get them back. And on the Republic side, between the Jedi and some of their bases and ships, there's lots of real synchronous things that can go on to redraw a lot of cards and get more cards in your hand as you play. So again, Star Wars, the deck building game, I'm going to post about it on my social if I haven't done so already, so keep an eye out for that. But this game I can't recommend enough, and I love it so much. Again, it's the Star Wars deck building game. There's the original version and now the Clone Wars version. So again, I want to thank Asmodee for sending that my way. Casey, I still need to take you on the Star Wars deck building game. I can't believe we haven't played it before. Oh yeah, I'm going to take you down for sure. Hey, let's talk about shows really quick. Rings of Power Season 2 just started on Amazon Prime. There have been, as of this recording, 5 episodes out. Episode 4, if you know, was the episode, in my opinion, where Tom Bombadil made an appearance, the Entwives made an appearance, the Barrow Whites, my Tolkien mind was blown after that episode, and I was so happy. I might have almost cried at one point. So really been enjoying that show so far. I literally count down, every week until Thursday night. It's so much fun. Also, Rebuild the Galaxy, the new Legos series on Disney Plus just came out. My son and I really enjoyed that. A really cool twist on kind of like a what if type series in the world of Lego Star Wars. Lego Star Wars is always so much fun and hilarious, and they do such a great job. We really enjoyed that. And then another true crime thing is the Wonderland Murders and the Secret History of Hollywood, which is on MGM+. This is from my man Michael Connolly, who I recently met at San Diego Comic-Con, and he is one of my favorite thriller authors of all time. He turned his podcast about this topic, some murders in Hollywood back in the early 80s, late 70s, and it's now a docuseries. There have only been a couple episodes out so far. It's really dark and really sad, but obviously really entertaining. And Michael Connolly kind of brings his police pals together, and they all talk about the case. I honestly don't know where it's going because I haven't listened to the podcast, and I don't know much about the history of this case, so I'm excited to see where that goes. Whew. Well, KC, we have talked about a lot today, but I've had such a great time chatting with you. Your help and your company is always so much appreciated. Well, I don't know about you, KC, but I've got books to read, books to listen to, more games to play, more shows to watch, and dad life to live. So thank you again for joining me, KC, and thank you all for listening. I will catch you guys next time. Thank you so much for listening. For more of my content, visit my website at thisdadreads.com for full book reviews, interviews, and articles. Follow me on socials at thisdadreads on Twitter and Instagram. This Dad Reads the podcast is produced by Aravis Industries and me. Special thanks to my editor, Jeremy Tuttle, and to Coma-Media for the use of their song Bounce. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe on your podcast platform of choice and leave me a 5-star review. It really helps. Catch you next time.